Hey there, restaurant pros. It's Dave Scott Peters, and welcome to the Restaurant Prosperity Formula podcast. For over 2 decades, I've been guiding restaurant owners to success with the proven principles of something I call the Restaurant Prosperity Formula. I originally created the formula based on the daily practices of the most successful restaurateurs I've coached, and it's now the foundation of what I teach restaurant owners like you so you can achieve success. What do I mean by success? Success is a restaurant owner who dictates the terms of their life and their bank account instead of their restaurants dictating those things for them. Success is a restaurant owner who has freedom from the restaurant and the financial freedom they never thought possible. How you define success is up to you, but I do know the way to achieving it is using the Restaurant Prosperity Formula. This season, I'm diving even deeper into the core elements of the formula: leadership, systems, training, accountability, and taking action. Along with my insights, you'll hear from special guests, industry experts, and inspiring success stories from fellow restaurant owners who've turned their businesses around and found their definition of success. In this episode, number 132, our guest is Doug Dr. Luff Luffborough III, President and CEO of Higher Level Leadership. Dr. Luff is an overcomer. As the son of a single-parent housekeeper, he is a first-generation college graduate. He received his bachelor's degree in business administration from Northeastern University, a master's degree from Harvard University Graduate School of Education, and a PhD in leadership studies and organizational consulting from the University of San Diego. Dr. Luff is a first-class keynote speaker, leadership consultant, and personal growth coach. He is also the author of Watch Me Rise: From Streets of Despair to the Halls of the Ivy League. Listen into our conversation as Dr. Luff tells his incredible story of being homeless to Harvard, which demonstrates you can make your dreams come true no matter your circumstances, about the importance of a healthy and happy life, and the importance of knowing what kind of leader you are and how to get the most out of your leaders. The biggest takeaway from our discussion is how all of these things are tied together. Let's get started. But first, a word from our sponsor. Look, if you run an independent restaurant and you're still tossing money at random social media posts hoping something sticks, stop. My friend Matt Plapp and his team at America's Best Restaurants have cracked the code. Their programs don't just get you likes, they drive actual sales. Whether you need new customers, want to win back lost ones, or just get your regulars to spend more, ABR's got a proven system for it. No fluff, just butts and seats. If you're ready to stop guessing and start growing, book a meeting now at business.americasbestrestaurants.com. No BS, just results. Dr. Luff, I want to thank you so much for doing this with me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I would not miss it, because what people are going to learn is we've known each other for a very long time. And I'm going to tell people, I'm going to let you share your story, because it's a very unique, very special story. Not one that everybody was going to look back in their life and go, hey, I can associate with that. I'm sure there will be some. But with that said, you've had an illustrious career. You have become an incredible speaker, somebody who motivates businesses, gets them in the right place, how you've coached people into better lives. Like, it is pretty amazing what you have done over the years. And just to give people a little idea, we first met in 1988. So it's been a long, long time. And during that time, we lost connection. We reconnected at my old company. I had you come speak at a group. I'll probably have you come speak to my group here in Vegas at some point in time. With that said, I'm excited to have you on here, because not only have you given us material that we put in our member site and our actual members view and learn about leadership, I've got you to ask questions about. So again, I want to thank you so much, but let's start off with your story, because it's not an everyday kind of story.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, David Scott Peters, I love you, man. And I'm so excited that we reconnected and what you're doing. For folks that are joining, my name is Doug Luffborough, but I go by Dr. Luff. I grew up in Worcester, Massachusetts, and really grew up very humble circumstances. I'm the oldest son of a housekeeper, and my father was not in my life. So, life was challenging. And my greatest dream was to go to college, a dream almost deferred when my guidance counselor told me 5 words that I'll never forget. when he said, "You are not college material." And so it was a really tough time for me because I was also homeless when I was a senior in high school. But my greatest ambition was to go to college. Never let someone's opinion of you become your reality. Only you can determine that. That's what I heard from Les Brown, and so I decided that I was going to go to college. And the number one school for me was Northeastern University because they had a co-op program. But I had some challenges to overcome to get to Northeastern. As a matter of fact, as a freshman, when I was in housing, that's how I was able to not be homeless anymore. I went straight from the streets of Worcester to becoming a freshman in your dorm, by the way, at Northeastern. And I have to say, we met for a brief time my freshman year at Northeastern, but it's a time that I'll never forget because you were kind of like a big brother. I think I told you this, but you were like a big brother to me. You saw, I think, promise in me, and you helped me figure things out that first year. And then from that first year on, the sky was the limit. By the time I was a senior at Northeastern University, I became the student commencement speaker of my class. I was RA of the year, followed in your footsteps, and I preceded former President Bill Clinton and the Boston Garden live on national television at 23 years old. And some could say that was the start of my speaking career.
Yeah, and it's a pretty amazing speech. I've watched it a number of times. I just want people to understand when you were homeless. Like, I want that to sink in, that you had a dream to go to college and there was nothing going to stop you, and you got scholarship and room and board, and you found your way to college from being homeless. And I want people to also understand that we met because I was the youngest RDA, resident director assistant, because you had to be a grad student. I was not. I was a senior in college because we were at a satellite dorm, which was Wentworth's college. We took over 2 of their floors in one of their dorms because we were over capacity. And so here I was as this senior in what should have been a graduate position, and I just took in my guys. It was an all-male, 2 floors of all-male freshmen, and I had no idea that you were homeless. You were just another one of the guys, and I think that it was fantastic, and I want to hear your perspective because you blended right in. I don't think anybody ever looked at you any different than, hey, you're just another student here, and you had a good network of friends very quickly, especially at that. I guess we were on the 4th floor, I think, instead of the 5th. Spidey and the boys, they were great people. So talk about your perspective of coming into there and getting that fresh start and what that meant.
Well, I have to say, my greatest dream, up until that point, my greatest dream in life was to go to college. So when that dream happened, I was on cloud 9. But at the same time, there was a level of expectation that, like, I'm here, I deserve to be here, and I'm going to graduate. What a lot of folks didn't realize is I took a Greyhound bus. My mom didn't move me, and I didn't have family members moving me in. Most of the folks, as they're lining up outside of Baker, they had their expeditions with the little U-Haul attached to it. And they were putting out their little refrigerator and putting out, all their little trinkets to set up their dorm. I had a backpack and a pillow,
Yeah.
But it didn't matter. I was at college. And so I had an attitude of gratitude, which is something I believe in. No matter how hard life hits you, if you have an attitude of gratitude, great things will come your way. And, in high school, even though I was homeless, I was voted best personality. So I took that best personality from high school and applied it in every area of my life, including my freshman year at Northeastern. But there was one thing for sure. I was not going back home because I didn't have a home to go to. Being able to rest my head at Baker Hall was my saving grace. And so I decided that I was going to take full advantage of all that Northeastern University offered.
Oh, you certainly did, because I remember as we talked, you, in order to stay there, you needed room and board, and you became the youngest RA a year before anybody was supposed to be an RA. I had to wait. Until
You're right.
midler year, and you got in there
You're right.
early. I just want you to
You're
know
right.
I was the top scorer, my class of RAs. Just when
I'm
we went
sure.
through I was top score. Just so we're clear.
Hey, you know what? No doubt. I was very impressed. But like not only did I want to be an RA and kind of model student leadership and helping other students navigate, but it was a necessity. The only way I could stay at Northeastern was to have my room and board paid for.
Now,
So I did what I needed to do.
you not only did what you need to do, we lost contact because I moved out west here, and you also wanted to go to Harvard. In fact, I wish I think the book is behind me, so I can't pull it up. If you've got one in front of you, talk about your book and how you've written your story, Homeless to Harvard. You went to Harvard afterwards and graduated there as well. I mean, how the heck did you decide to want to do that?
Yeah, so at the graduation, at Northeastern, it was pretty phenomenal. And like you said, this is all on YouTube. But I've always believed that you ask for what you want. And before the graduation, I was interviewed by the USA Today, and the reporter said, "Hey, we know that you're going to be speaking right before the President of the United States. When you have an opportunity to speak with him, what are you gonna ask him?" Now, my mom has taught me that you need to be prepared to ask for what you want in life. What's the worst they can do? Say no, and you'll be just exactly where you are. But what if they say yes? So I looked at the reporter without skipping a beat, and I said, my mother's been a housekeeper for 23 years. I can't think of a better place to visit than the White House. And you know what that reporter did? He printed the exact quote in the USA Today. So when the President of the United States went to speak after me at the graduation, one part of his speech, he stops and says, I also read an article about Doug and his mother and his trials. And in this article, he plans to invite himself and his mom to the White House. And everyone at the garden starts laughing. And everyone thought, this is cute. And then the next thing, the president says, I'm going to do just that. I'd like for Doug and his mother to come to the White House. If any man in America, and he went on and on and on to give accolades about my mom and parents who support the kids. And so we went to the White House. And kind of how I get to Harvard is that when I was leaving the Oval Office, the president put his hand on my shoulder and he said, Doug, if there's ever anything I could do for you, let me know. So I went back home and I worked at a domestic Peace Corps called City Year in Boston.
Yeah.
And all the people at City Year went to Harvard. The founders, Harvard Law School. The guy I worked with, his wife started Care.com, and she went to Harvard Business School. And another friend went to the Ed School, and another friend went to the Kennedy School, the Divinity School. And so I said, why not me? And so I looked up the number one graduate school in education. It was Harvard. And I talked to my brother into applying with me. And I said, hold on, Daryl, before we submit our application, I remember that there's a president who's a sitting president who said, if there's anything I could do for you, let me know. So I had George Stephanopoulos' phone number. He was like the chief of staff. And I called him up and I said, I told him who I was and that the president said, if I could do anything, let me know. And so my brother and I applied to Harvard. Anything the president could do would be greatly appreciated. And he called the president of Harvard at the time, Lawrence Summers, and also talked to the late Senator Ted Kennedy and Senator Kerry. We received letters of recommendations from both of them. And Doug and Daryl Luffborough got into Harvard and completed Harvard. And then I wrote Watch Me Rise. Watch Me Rise from the streets of despair to the halls of the Ivy League. And it's really my story of growing up poor and a challenging situation, graduating from Northeastern, going to Harvard and the White House. And so, it's really meant to inspire people that it's never too late to reach your dreams and your goals. You just have to stick with it.
It is just amazing, because there's so many of us who don't ask the question, don't have the confidence to say, I'm going to get what I want. I very much subscribe to a lot of what you talk about in the sense that if I have a goal, I will do anything I can to get there. I am not as confident in what I want, like to actually ask people, because you're right, if you don't ask, you don't know. I think sometimes I'd just rather work harder. So it is amazing. Now you take your inspirational story, you take, your trials and tribulations from homeless to Harvard, you're making huge strides in your life. How the heck did you discover your passion to take what you've learned, the positivity, the motivation, the how you can get through any challenge, and convert that into becoming a keynote speaker, becoming a leadership consultant, and a personal growth coach? Like, that's an awful lot, but it's all got something in common, and it's getting people to move forward in their lives and achieve their dreams. How'd you figure that out?
That's right. Well, I've been doing it for a long time, right? It started in 1993. The process started. I mean, I was working in an industry and for most of my life, but I've always stayed true to that passion. First and foremost was speaking. I had a stuttering impediment in the third grade, and kids used to make fun of me all the time. And I decided that I was going to be a professional speaker, and I was going to use words that kids used to laugh at to inspire a nation. I mean, that's kind of just how I felt. I was in third grade then. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't know how it was all going to come together. But it made sense at the age of 23 when I was the student commencement speaker of my class. Like, I didn't do it. It was deeply rooted in why I wanted to do that. I did it because of the third grade experience and because my journey had prepared me for it. And then after that time at 23, I knew that I wanted to continue speaking and inspiring other people and getting them from where they are to where they want to be. Being able to inspire people to say, you know what? I am better than this. I deserve better. And so that's kind of where the passion came from, was because I had a stuttering impediment. And I decided that my number one fear back then was public speaking. And that I was going to dedicate my life to attacking the thing that scared me the most. And I wasn't going to stop until I perfected it. I still stutter when I get excited, but most of the time I stutter on purpose, but I'm not going to let that stop me. And so that's really, folks, I love speaking at conferences, where people are gathered together. That's actually a perfect place. People are gathered together. They're looking for inspiration. They're looking for positivity. They're looking for change. And it's not that it's just going to be like, I'm going to say something and your life's going to change right away. The change happens in you. The change happens in people. But sometimes they have to hear things. They have to hear concepts. They have to be connected with people. They kind of reinvigorate their insides. The leadership consulting really stands from, I got my PhD. I have a PhD from USD and leadership studies. So I've studied and spent 7 years getting my PhD, learning not only theory, but action on how do you transfer some of the theory of leadership into action in your business. And so I help businesses and consult with businesses, to do that piece. And then thirdly is the personal growth coaching. Now, this is personal. It's personal to me.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, I have met so many successful people in business who, money's not the issue. A brand new building, cars, and material things aren't the issue. They've been very successful at that. Where they've struggled, or I dare to say where they have failed, has been with their family, has been with keeping their marriage together, has been with they have children and children don't want to talk to them. Like, that's deeply rooted in something that's very personal to me. I grew up without a father. My father was not in my life. For about half my life, I kept thinking I was the problem of why he disappeared. And the other half of my life, I realized that it had nothing to do with me and that I had an opportunity as the father I never had with my kids to be in their life. So I'm very, very passionate about helping people grow personally in their personal life. It's a private thing. It's something that, is very, very private and intimate, but I get the most of seeing families restored, marriages healed, kids talking to their parents again and enjoying themselves. Because really, besides the work and the career, what matters most is the people who are close to you in your life. And it should be a good experience, not a bad one.
Well, we're going to circle back to the leadership part because I wholeheartedly believe that the number one reason why restaurants fail, any business for that matter, is lack of leadership. It is the number one piece in the restaurant prosperity formula. So we're going to circle back to that. But I want to stay on this personal growth part because a part of what we do is we talk about restaurant prosperity is freedom for your restaurant and the financial freedom you deserve. And the reason we start with the freedom from your restaurant is most entrepreneurs, but in the restaurant industry, it's rampant. They donate their lives. We donate our lives. We think that we're doing this for our family. We lie to ourselves. I'm going to work my ass off. This is for my family. That's for you. It's for your ego. It's for the fact that you haven't learned to delegate and lead. It's because it requires you the way you've set up your business. But what happens is, we don't spend time with our family. We miss the 80th birthday party. We miss the 25th anniversary. We miss the kids' first t-ball game. We miss the game after game after game, recitals, you name it, because we got to go to work and I'm doing this for you, my family, and it tears people up, whether it's you as the individual, but especially your family and friends, because even if they get you go out to dinner, you're not present. You're on your phone. You say you get up from the table, I gotta take this call. You go out, you come back, everybody's finished their meal, your food is cold, and your partner's looking at you like you did it frickin' again. You said you'd be here, you said you'd be present, and you weren't. So I really want you to expand a little bit on the personal growth part. How is it that you help somebody navigate that? I approach it from the system side. I approach it from the leadership side as well. But there's a lot of baggage we carry. And how do you sift through that baggage and help guide somebody through that?
I think you hit the nail on the head. It's exactly why I do it. I think our first order of business is at home. And, a true leader will put a stake in the ground and will figure out what they need to do to be at that graduation, because that's what that child remembers the most. They don't remember that you've had 20 restaurants and, they fly you around the world and then you take your kids over there and they want nothing to do with you. And they're in Bora Bora, but they don't want to do anything with you. A true leader, and I say this with all humbleness, a true leader makes sure that gets taken care of first before the brick and mortar. Another thing is a lot of it's generational. And what I mean by that is they grew up in a family that didn't go see them play. They grew up in a family where, dad was never home and he was smoking all the time, drinking all the time, abusive behavior. The thing is, how do you deal with that? Well, the one thing is you get help. If you get the help you need in those areas. And so what I do is really through questioning, right? Through questioning and experience. I will also say I'm a spiritual person, so I have that aspect as well that I provide to this. But those who aren't, who aren't spiritual, I still work with them because I believe in leadership through the heart first, then the head. If I could get to your heart it's the vernacular I use. If I could get to a person's heart, I could get to their head. And everything else will work out. I truly believe it's from the heart to the head, and it really matters, And so when we talk about how I do it, first of all, it's people being very vulnerable and say, hey, you know what? I want to get better at these in this area of my life, and I need help with it. And I only know from experience. David Scott Peters, the big reason I do this is because I have to be a leader of my own message. I wasn't there for my kids during the duration in their time. I missed their baseball practices. I worked, and still do in some cases, all around the clock. There's no off shift. What I've had to learn through this process is to turn it off. And the leadership component, is empowering and equipping and leveraging other people that work for you to do those things so that you can take those times off. Like that's critical. And that's not really hard to do. It's more just of understanding and letting go and putting your ego aside, right? Putting your ego inside and saying, look, I do have a number two. And if you don't have a number two, you better get a number two. And so one of the things that, and you know, I don't want to jump ahead, but I think it's a good segue is, you know, I have in the leadership consulting piece, I do a leadership compass workshop.
Yep.
And it's a real simple concept. It's the directionals of the compass that I believe all people are either north, south, east, and west. And that we have a natural bend to one of those north, south, east, west. North is a person of action. East is a person of vision. South is a person of empathy. And west is a person of analysis. And we start there. Pick the one that resonates most with you. For me, it's a north, and my number two is an east. So I'm a person of action. I like to get stuff done, and I'm a person of vision. And I just naturally run well in those domains. A lot of folks don't understand their leadership styles and what leadership styles they bring to the table. But there's a whole host of things that we do when we're in north and when we're in east. And if we're too much of a north in the east, we will turn people off. I'll give you one example. If I'm too much of a north, people can see me as a bully, that I'm bullying my way through things, like a bull in a china shop to try to get things done. If I'm too much of an east, I'm daydreaming about the restaurants I want to have in another country, and I'm not taking care of the restaurants here in America.
Yeah.
So that's the general concept. And once you know what your leadership style is, it's important to know that, because that's can explain kind of how you make the decisions you do. But the next level of the compass is to understand all directions of the compass, and to know that just because I'm a northeast, when I really master the leadership of the compass, I will walk into a room and realize that there's no west in the room. There's no one here that can bring that analysis, that's looking over the spreadsheet, you know, reading through the list of supplies we're supposed to have and didn't have. And I need to be a west, or I need to hire a very strong west. And then, you know, in your particular business and industry that you're in the restaurant industry, south is huge. You need people who can greet people. Hey, how you doing? Welcome. How many is in your party? You're gonna need people who love people, who are waiters, waitresses, people who love people. So you can't have a north, or you may not want to have a north or someone with a very strong personality right off meeting people who are coming in, or maybe from out of town, and they don't really know the culture and the concepts, but they love your restaurant. You want to have a south there. So I teach people, leaders, how to connect and build people, human resources within their company that have all areas of the compass. The last piece I'll just share is that, and the compass is also related to departments. So your west, that's where you're going to have your bookkeepers. That's where you're going to have your financial analysts. That's where you're going to have your folks that your CFOs. The east, our vision. That's where you're going to have your marketing, communications people, and the people that are going to attract people to your restaurant, because they're vision people. They can see, they can use social media. And then you'll have your south. Those are the people that are going to be, when your doors open, the face they see has to be a south. Someone who just gravitates, who makes people feel comfortable. And then at the north, you're going to have probably the leader of the restaurant. That's the person, the buck stops with you. So these are the types of things that I do with the Leadership Compass.
Well, you've done training for me live. You have a training on this inside our website. It is very simple to understand, but it is a complex thing to do. You know, it's one thing to say, I get it. It's another to say, hey, I'm going to use this compass to understand who should be on my team. I think you talked about it just a moment ago, is you don't want a whole bunch of people like yourself. You know, I talk about it all the time. You want all the different, the north, south, east, west on your team, so that nothing gets missed. Because if we've got nothing but norths and we're all taking action, doing things ourselves, we're probably never asking for help. If we're all visionaries, nobody's doing a damn thing. If we're all doing the hospitality side of things in the south, you know, everybody's just taking care of hospitality, but we're not paying our bills. We're not taking care of the HR. We're not marketing. We're not like, if we don't have if we're all analyzing everything, it's analysis paralysis. We're afraid to make decisions because the numbers don't line up perfectly. And you've got to have a team of all of that. But as a leader, and it is the number one piece for a restaurant owner, is becoming the leader their restaurant needs, is in your teachings. When you go through it as the leader, you learn everybody's leadership style, which means you learn how to communicate with them and push their buttons. Because at some point in time, you may have a South that their secondary is the analysis side, and you might be able to push that button and move them. They understand the business, and you can move them into a new role that they're suited for. And so, talk a little bit about that, because that's powerful.
You hit it. Well, and that's leadership. So I started with, the first thing is you need to know what's your leadership style,
right,
and feel comfortable with that. But then, where the next level comes in is can you be masterful to walk into the room and figure out which leadership style is missing? And then the piece you brought up was, as you're connecting with someone who is, let's go with what you said, who's a Southwest. So their first inkling is an empathy. First of all, for a South, the first thing you say to a South is, "Hey, how you feeling? How you doing?" You don't mention anything about work, because the South cares about, do you care about me?
Right.
And it's deeply. When the South gets quiet, you should get worried if they don't start talking more. So, in your scenario, if you know your people, this is leadership, knowing your people, knowing who you have on your team, and that person's a Southwest, great leadership will say, I need to be forward thinking. Like, I have an accounting team, but my accountant lacks empathy. So she turns off a lot, or he or she turns off a lot of people during payday, and they just really don't, So this opportunity, working with that South who is at the front door, but also who is went to school to become an accountant, but is now, but is self-dominant. That is the opportunity to be able to train the replacement and do it in a way where it's seamless and it's not imposing. It makes the most sense. So that's leadership.
What's beautiful about it is it complements exactly what we do, because we teach people systems, and the systems part is, there's a system, a process, a way to doing anything and everything. We take the personality out of it and we teach a system, a process, a way. It means we have trained replacements, but the beautiful part about understanding their leadership style and your leadership style is selecting the right people to continue those systems on, select the right people in the right roles, and more importantly, learn how to push their buttons to get the most out of them and benefit the whole organization. It's okay to say, okay, I've got systems that make up for your weaknesses. That's what I talk about for leaders. If you're a numbers person, I say, we call you the numbers person versus the social worker in some respects. And you sit there and go, well, if I'm the social worker, the person the giver, I call them, they want to take care of the guests. It's hospitality. They ignore the numbers and the systems and all that stuff, and they're poor, But vice versa, I've got the numbers person who's often knows all the numbers and all the systems, but's impatient with people and doesn't communicate what they want. And well, the systems bring you into the middle, making in our model the captain of the ship, the leader your restaurant needs. You may be naturally one or the other, but the system makes up for your weaknesses. Well, you take it to the nth degree, and you map out how you talk to people. You map out how to select those people. You map out how whether you're the giver or the numbers person, or you find your way into being the captain, it does not matter. You're going to learn to lead your team. You're going to learn to lead your business, maximize everybody's strengths. Am I oversimplifying that?
No. What really intrigued me when I first learned the compass, and this is relevant for the restaurant business, is I truly believe that businesses that are successful have those areas of the compass all in full motion, meaning they have leaders that are strong, really strong in all of those in the north, south, east, west, and have the ability to acknowledge when they're wrong, when they're heading down the wrong road with their leadership style, when they're being too aggressive if it's a north, when they're daydreaming too much. And I would submit to you, and we could play it over and over with companies. The one company that I think about is Blockbuster. Now, you remember back in the day, Blockbuster was on every single block.
Yeah.
Like Friday night, what are you doing? Oh, we're going down to Blockbuster. We're going to get some popcorn. We're going to pay like $1,000 for the big Reese's peanut butter cup. We're going to grab a couple movies for the weekend. Like, it was the thing to do, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It was so the thing to do that, honestly, when I found out that Blockbuster went under, I was shocked. During that era, I thought, what in the world? I submit to you that in their boardroom, when they're talking about where they're going and their strategic plan, their 5 and 10-year strategic plan, that they didn't have an East leader in that boardroom. Because if they had more East people in that boardroom, they would have predicted Netflix. They would have predicted where it's going. That's what an East does. An East thinks in the future. And that's why it frustrates a lot of people, because it's like people are working in the now and they're talking about things that don't exist. And then you can link that up with Google, with Apple, with Elon, with all the people now. They're all East dominant. And that's why all these new, Uber changed the game because of an East. I say all that because businesses, I believe, succeed and fail because they don't have areas of the compass. They're either missing that West, and they do a crappy job of doing their books, and or they have great food. The food tastes wonderful, but the hostess is pissing people off, looking them up and down, having the sly look like they don't belong here. I've witnessed it myself when I go to restaurants. I'm not going to throw out any restaurants, but I'm in San Diego County. I'm in San Diego County. I can't name 5 restaurants I absolutely love.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because when I walk in, do I feel like I'm appreciated and valued? 2, is the food good? 3, do they provide conversation, or are they just trying to get me out of there? I went to see a ball game. The Red Sox came to town. I'm from Boston. Red Sox Padres. I'm a local establishment. And I, got something to drink and something to eat. And they also gave me my check. I didn't even have the first bite yet, and they're throwing the check down. So what is that saying? We don't want you here, brother.
Yeah.
Eat your food and get the hell out.
Yeah.
That's how I took it.
Yeah.
And I would say that person's not a South. Kind of not over exaggerating, but like, they don't care about their job. That person shouldn't have been in that position. I won't go back there again.
Or it could be that the leader is just what was that?
Putting that off,
right? It's just just get the money,
yeah.
And forgetting that we're in the hospitality industry, right?
Right. Or a North that's really giving it to their employees because the leader can't make payroll and they're frustrated and pissed off. So now they're, putting that out on the people that work for them.
So let's take that full circle. Let's say that example, because that happens all the time. I've got people who join our program that are just looking to make a % or 2 different because the economy is taking a crap and our inflation has hit us. I've got people who they need to save their business and everything in between. But there is a level of fear. There's a level of taking action at all costs when your back is up against the wall. And in some cases, that's when we're potentially the most ingenuitive, is when your back is up against the wall and you have to make change. But you talk about it right then and there. Sometimes that stress level is we communicate the stress level in how we communicate with all of our team. It is stress, it is barky, it is fearful. It's all the things which, as a leader, affects your business. So let's take it back to full circle. If I'm that kind of person, if that's happening to me, that means I'm also not doing the things I need to at home. I'm not communicating with my significant other or my friends and family and so on.
Yeah.
Talk about how those 2 pieces when you look at it and work with those together, why they're so interconnected. Can you do that for me?
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I started with it starts at home. So not only you have the pressures of the business, but if you're not happy in your personal life, if the home situation isn't set, I don't care how long you stay at work, you bring that in, or you start making decisions in the work life that are really even more damaging as a way to vent, as a way to reach out. You do some stuff that you probably shouldn't outside of the relationship, to cope, that makes it even worse. So freeze. The best thing to do, the best thing to do is to bring someone that has been through it, who has gone through it, who's maybe outside your circle, like a David Scott Peters, to come in and help. And I'm not just saying that because I know you. I'm saying it because sometimes people need folks that have been there, done that, outside, to come in to to give this person this perspective, because it's hard to see the forest from the trees when you're in it.
Yeah.
That's one. Two, it all goes back to, and this is a simple thing, is to get back to, if you were to close your eyes and you were to think of, put all that aside for right now, what's the one thing that will give you and bring you joy and happiness right now that you could do right now? Don't even think about that. What's the one thing you would do that's positive, that'll leave you in the right direction? What's the one thing that gives you joy? Let's just do that. And trying to do that every single day, spend time doing that. That doesn't mean that things are going to go away, but how you manage it and how you handle it will be differently. So every day, for me, I said I'm a spiritual person. So every day I read a 1-year Bible. I start my day with a 1-year Bible. I enjoy doing that. And then I walk the dog every single day. And on my walk, I'm talking to myself. I'm not crazy, but I'm talking to myself. I'm visualizing where I want to go, who I want to be, what do I need to do, what are some of the things that are strongholds in my life that I need to break free now, not later, now. And I do that in my walk every single day. And then I come home and then I water the grass. Now, I love watering the grass. Now, we have sprinklers and stuff, but I love watering the grass. It's therapeutic. Whatever that is, find something that's therapeutic. What happens when people get to that point is that they're doing things for other people and they're not taking care of themselves. And it's sometimes the little things, like going to the gym or rowing. And sometimes it's those little things that are insignificant to other people, but they're a huge foundation of who you are and how you got to where you are. Go back to that. Go back to that. Whether it's pickleball or golf. I mean, there's so many things that are small and simple that can be done. I go to the gym. Monday through Friday. On the weekends, it's optional. But during the week, it's non-negotiable. And you know why? Because I do the same thing. I spend 15 minutes in the sauna, 15 minutes in the steam room, and what am I doing? I'm meditating. I'm thinking about my preferred future. I'm thinking about the things that I need to get right in my life. And you know what happens is usually when I do that, people will come to me like, "Oh, you had a really crazy conversation with David Scott Peters. You need to fix that." It'll happen in the sauna. You're like, that's, you got to follow through with that.
Yeah.
But you need that personal space to have that place to be able to relax and enjoy yourself, because the work will be there for you. But I truly believe too that on the journey, finding that number 2, everyone needs a Robin. Every Batman needs a Robin.
Yeah.
And I really truly believe that. And, in the family, sometimes it's our spouse, but in the work, there needs to be another 2, and then long term for folks who really are really just killing it in the business, is like thinking about who's going to be your successor. You didn't build all this just to have it go away when you die. So all these things are really important.
Fantastic. I appreciate you going deep on that one, because it really it's all connected. You cannot silo off your life. It's all there. And I think we talk the same messages, maybe a different approach how we get there. And I'm hoping, and why I wanted to bring you on, is that you might be the message, the delivery of the message somebody needs to hear in order to start to change their life, change their business. And I couldn't think of anybody better if somebody wanted to reach out to you. And so let's go to that. If somebody wanted to learn more about you, I want you to tell them how they would find you and contact you. But I also want you to plug your book, because my name is in the book. I'm actually in the book, just so people know. I was famous before I wrote my own book. I was in your book. So talk about how they would contact you and how would they would find Watch Me Rise.
Yes. So the best way, and I rebranded myself. I worked with a company. I rebranded the Dr. Luff message. And so to go to my website, drluff.com.
And that's Luff.
Yeah, drluff.com. And they'll find information about me. They'll be able to read more about my story and the services I provide. They'll also be able to order the book, Watch Me Rise. So it could all be done through drluff.com. And my social media platforms are the same, at Dr. Luff. But I would love to connect and help and heal folks who are going through tough times.
That's awesome. I really appreciate you doing this. I want you, before we take off, I always ask my guests if there was one thing you wish we talked about, you want to talk about before we go. You have a favorite book or a favorite quote, something to leave before we do so. What would that be for you?
First and foremost, David Scott Peters, I love you. And I'm so glad we reconnected over all these years. And just, hoping to work together with you. For those listening, I told David Scott Peters that the next time he has a conference, I'll set up the room, I'll open the door, I'll collect the tickets, whatever, because I like hanging out with him. He's a great guy, and he was back then, and he is now. My favorite book, I have to say, is Watch Me Rise, man. Watch Me Rise. I still read it. For daily inspiration, because sometimes I forget how far I came.
Yeah,
and I have to go back and read it. And my favorite quote would be a quote that I say all the time. In order to go to the places that you've been destined to go, you have to be willing to do things that other people just won't do, and do it over and over again and over again until what you do becomes who you are, and who you are becomes what you do.
Amen to that. Because that is truly, you are your actions, right? I mean, ultimately, you are your actions, not who you think you want to be, but who you actually are and live every day. Dr. Luff, a.k.a. Doug to me, I appreciate you doing this. I will probably do it again. I will get you to one of the seminars to sit in there. You don't have to take tickets. But we'll also probably get you into a Mastery Plus meeting and bring you in and talk to my group. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, brother.
Ready to take the next step towards achieving restaurant prosperity, freedom from the daily grind, and the financial success you deserve? Book a discovery call with Ryan James to learn about our group coaching program. Ryan will guide you through how our program can transform your restaurant and help you achieve the prosperity and freedom you've been striving for. Click the link in the description below or visit dsp.coach/talk-to-Ryan to schedule your call now.